Welcome to the Hoof Care Corner. We're going to get right back into the discussion about the frog from our last session. So if this foal's foot never gets out of this curled position, it's going to trap that coffin bone inside of that hoof capsule and never allow it to grow to the size that it needs to. This is the size of a matured coffin bone, and imagine this being on this size foot here, or even a foot that's slightly larger than that. Now, if this foot maintained this curled position, it would strangulate this bone and not allow it to be the size that it was intended to be. And Mother Nature is no fool in that respect. She's not going to cause this horse to demise as a result of this, so it's just going to make that foot smaller. So have to give some thought to how we raise these youngsters and look very closely at their feet and see that this heel condition gets rectified early in their life. And so far, the best process to get that done is to give them lots and lots of exercise. And I know that's difficult for a lot of folks because we have limited space, but just offering them an opportunity with another horse, another foal preferably, and certainly whatever space is available. You may have to hand lead these guys or take them out on the road. Do whatever you can to give them lots of exercise. Believe me, it's really important to get this foot functioning. We'll go back to the graphics now and show you what many feet look like, even as 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds. They never completely get out of this curled heel condition. And I think it's very important and good information for everybody to look at this. You look at these feet, you recognize the bars. If they have an unusually sharp curve to them, that's not normal. If you have an unusually sharp bend to the heels, that's not normal. If the frog seems very skinny and narrow in the back, and if there's a deep crease in this bulb line of the heels right here, that's not normal. Those are things that can be changed, and they need to be changed as quickly as they're recognized. And oftentimes just the sheer height of the heel, if it's taller than it should be with respect to the live sole, that's the reason why this foot gets contracted in the manner that it does. With this type of foot, the frog is not within contact to the ground, and the heel ends up migrating forward. So these are early signs that you can look for to recognize some hoof deformities. The frog is just not functional enough to keep the back of that foot wide as it should be. The frog serves as a reference for hoof balance, and I'll show you how that is. It shows us where the tip of the coffin bone is, shows us where the widest part of the foot is, which is the center of articulation, and shows us where the most caudal weight-bearing structure of the foot is. This is an example of a normal foot. You notice the frog is a much different type. The bars are straighter, and the heels end very close to the back of the foot. To the back of the frog. Not all heels will end in this position, but nevertheless, they need to be near that back part of the foot. This is a live example of that. If you notice the apex of this frog, or the tip of it, you'll notice that it has a nice rounded end to it, and that's a normal looking frog, and that's what you want to see in every foot, whether it's a front or a hind. If you notice a frog that is very long and narrow, that's the most classic indicator that the hoof is distorted. Not only is the frog longer and skinnier than it should be, but this whole sole of the foot, the whole front of the foot has migrated ahead of this widest part. This is the type of foot. It may look like a normal foot in many respects, but if you look at the front of it, it actually has a distortion that starts right up here at the hairline, and there's a small straight spot right here, and then the rest of the foot just migrates forward in a flared form. And those are indicators that tell us that the foot is losing its relationship to the coffin bone. Hoof distortion, as we see it, is the source of virtually any type of lameness that occurs in the lower limb. So the frog is a good indicator for that. And if you notice these subtle things, like the narrowness of the frog in the back, or the long, skinny taper to the apex of the frog. Those are things that you can see and should throw up a red flag and say there's something that's going on here. And we're going to give you some information as time goes on in future sessions where we'll show you how to find the widest part of the foot and how to make some early determinations that you can discuss with your farrier or hoof care practitioner that may be helpful in preventing these lameness issues that we seem to be plagued with nowadays. This is a radiograph of that foot. We'll see where the widest part generally runs down through the center of articulation, and the line that's drawn across the model in the corner is drawn at that same place. There's a marker that's been placed at the tip of the frog right there that shows up down here. And it's always nice to have those markers in place when we look at these films, just so we know, get a proper orientation as to the internal structures. Without the marker, you couldn't tell where the frog was in relation to the tip of P3. By having a marker placed at the tip of the frog, we're able to know where the tip of the coffin bone is, and we're going to be able to measure from there to the front of the wall and to the back of the foot to determine where the heel is from that widest spot, as well as to the front of the foot. So that's why the frog is such an important feature. It gives us some real good references to some vital structures of the hoof capsule that will help us be able to balance the foot in the most efficient way. Again, this is a normal looking foot, and it's got a nice rounded apex to the frog. The distance from this widest part is very short in comparison to what is in the back, and that's what we try to strive for. And I think all farriers try to look at that basically. There's no distortion in the front of this foot, which is a good indicator as well. And looking at a normal x-ray, the x-ray of that foot, we see that from the center of the foot there's an equal distance from the back as well as there is to the front. One of the things that we have determined because of our looking at the frog and its true normal nature, we find that from this marker here placed at the apex of the frog forward to the tip of P3 is generally 3/4 of an inch to an inch, and seems to be within that range through most normal size feet. So this information about the deformities in the frog, it can be very valuable to the average horse owner or trainer, or even to veterinarians and farriers. Simply recognizing early when the frog is far too narrow at the back, those things can be changed. And when the apex of the frog gets much longer and narrower than it should be, that's a good indication that the whole foot has become deformed. And the horses are likely to end up with some serious problems in the end. Certainly before those times, they're going to have some gait fault problems. They're likely to be stumbling, they're going to be forging some, and or they're going to be landing toe first. Those are other indicators that you can get a head start on preventing the lameness issues. We're out of time for this session, and we're going to continue talking about the frog and its function in the next session.